What if I told you you could program your subconscious mind and manifest your deepest desires using only simple symbols? Well, the good news is that you can, and in this video, we are going to talk all about sigil magic. Now, sigil magic is a very powerful and super accessible tool in the chaos magic paradigm that is very psycho-spiritual in nature, at least in the modern era. And it has this like uncanny ability to, by its nature being a symbol, be able to imprint your desires on the subconscious mind while bypassing like the logical kind of brain chatter bullshit in our conscious minds. In this video, we're going to cover just a little quick and dirty on what sigils are, how they kind of work when it comes to your psychology, when it comes to like the spiritual mechanics of them. We are going to talk a little bit about their historical context, how to create and charge them, their importance, and then at the end we're going to talk a little bit about hypersigils, so stay tuned for that. Now, first of all, I want to ask you, have you used sigil magic before? If so, please let us know in the chat what you've done, how you've used them, and what your results are. This is really such a beautifully accessible form of magical working that does not require like a ton of ingredients, a ton of time, like any of that sort of stuff. It's kind of just you and your desire, and I love it for its simplicity. Also, please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you are interested in chaos magic and psycho-spiritual wellness that is grounded and not full of you know what. Now, what are sigils? Sigils are essentially a visual representation of the practitioner's intent. So it's a symbol that a practitioner creates in order to sort of correspond with their intention or the thing that they are trying to manifest. Now, because it is a symbol, it is way more effective at imprinting that desire, that intention into the practitioner's subconscious mind. Now, the word sigil is derived from the Latin term sigillum. I hope I'm saying that right, which essentially means seal or symbol. And what this is a signature of desire. Now, historically, probably one of the most kind of commonly known examples of sigils in occult circles and even outside of it, which is why it's such a good example, would be the Lesser Key of Solomon. So back in the medieval times, there is a book about different sigils or seals that correspond to different entities. In the modern context, we have figures like Austin Osman Spare, who really modernized the sigil concept for chaos magic and really focused more on that subconscious sort of nature of them rather than having them be corresponding with like outside entities or outside forces, supernatural forces. Now, as your psycho-spiritual bestie, the reason why I am so into them, aside from their simplicity and aside from, how just inherently kind of creative they are, is because these are like pretty fundamentally psycho-spiritual in nature, at least how they're used in modern times, and certainly for how I use them. They act as a bridge from the subconscious to the conscious mind. So typically when somebody claims they want something, claims they have an intention, or, claims they have a desire for something, and we say we want to manifest things, when we struggle with that, it's usually because there's an incongruency with what your subconscious mind thinks and believes and what your conscious mind is claiming that it wants. When there's an incongruency there, it can cause a wobble that makes it very hard to manifest because you're saying you want one thing, but your subconscious mind might not believe that it's even possible at all. So the purpose of using symbols and using sigils is a way to kind of bypass that logic, kind of mental chatter thinking brain and really imprint those intentions and those desires in the subconscious mind, acting as a bridge to get those in alignment and get those into congruency. So the way that I use them, and a lot of modern chaots use them, is as a tool for self-transformation rather than some sort of representation of something, supernatural. I actually think our psychology is so supernatural, even just on its own. It's mind-boggling. Now, how and why these work. So again, when it comes to the subconscious mind, your subconscious mind processes symbols and images a lot more effectively than it processes words. So sigils are a way to encode an intent into a visual representation, a visual form, which really allows the subconscious to act without all that conscious kind of mental chatter interference. So in the case of Austin Osman Spare, I always struggle to say that name. Can we just say that? I just need to get that out of the way. I feel like it's such a tongue twister. But his theory was that the conscious mind really does inhibit magic, right? So we have this psychic sensor that has this way of gaslighting ourselves and really putting a lid on what's possible. And when we use sigils, what we are doing is essentially trying to bypass that psychic sensor. Now, because you guys know that my degree is in psychology and I'm such a huge psychology nerd, especially when it comes to psychospirituality, there have been studies that have been done in parapsychology that really suggest that focused intention is actually able to influence outcomes in a positive way. And this really aligns with that idea of the sigils and their force of will principle. Now, if we're looking at it in more spiritual terms and more chaos magic terms, in chaos magic, we kind of view the subconscious mind as really a microcosm of reality, right? So that this is how we are capable of shaping our outcomes through symbolic manipulation and through using things like correspondences and stuff like that. Additionally, in chaos magic, there is an emphasis on gnosis, right? So this idea of inducing an altered state of consciousness, which really enhances the efficacy of sigils by, again, aligning that subconscious and conscious intent. Now, why they work? So essentially, sigils are a way to boil down really complex intentions and desires into a simple single image, so a symbol that really reduces kind of that mental chatter. Also, when you go through the process, and we'll talk about this more at the later on in the video, when you go through the process of charging and trying to forget about the sigil, this can prevent that kind of conscious obsession that also is one of the worst things for manifestation, right? So that idea that if we focus on the things we don't have, then we're focusing on the lack rather than actually trying to feel into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And if you want to know a little bit more about law of assumption and that sort of stuff, I've got another video linked below that might be helpful for talking about that a little bit more. So by kind of bypassing that obsessive focus on the lack, this is another way that we can allow the subconscious to work in a more free and unhindered way. Now, of course, most spiritual topics, it's not there's people out there doing a ton of research studies on this, but there's so much anecdotal evidence from people like myself and maybe people like you. If you have your experiences where this has worked for you, please, again, put it in the chat, because anybody that is watching this, for them to see that you should not be sleeping on this form of magic, right? So there's so much success that people have actually talked about when it comes to sigil magic. Even though it is so simple, even though it doesn't require a lot of things, it can be so effective. People have talked about things like manifesting new jobs, manifesting relationships, and a lot of stuff when it comes to the realm of personal growth, right? Shifting your own energy as a practitioner. Now, I'm not trying to turn this into a documentary, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the history of sigil magic. So even in ancient times, we have found Neolithic symbols. We found runes. There is a lot of evidence that our species is really inherently spiritual and that we do interface with the world in a highly symbolic way. Some of these symbols even transcend cultural barriers, and that's pretty amazing. In the medieval era, again, there was a lot of work with sigils during that time, but mostly when it came to the idea of invoking entities, right? Invoking demons, invoking spirits, that sort of thing. Even in the Renaissance period and beyond, there is documented cases of people using sigils to channel specific energies. Now, in the modern era, again, we do have Austin Osman Spare, y'all. We do have Spare, who really brought the sigil conversation again into this realm of psychospirituality and acting as that bridge between the subconscious mind and your conscious intent and desires. Now, again, when it comes to sigil magic, when it comes to chaos magic, the emphasis these days, certainly in the modern era, and for a lot of us who practice, is really this emphasis on belief as a tool, as, you know, what you believe to be true, what's happening in your subconscious mind, and your personal symbolism having a lot of weight when it comes to your practice and when it comes to how you are going to use sigils and why they will work for you personally. Even up into the modern era, sigils are so popular. They're such a big part of the modern kind of occult and certainly chaos magic conversation. From everything, honestly, from like Wicca, paganism to tattoos. Like there's a lot of people who have sigil tattoos. Now, how to create a sigil, there's a few different ways for this, and I actually do have a couple of shorts here on YouTube that I can link to down below if you want to see a representation that's like a little bit funny, because honestly, like, although there's a few popular ways that people do this, they're not, it's not like a one size fits all approach. Like most things chaos magic, like most things modern magic, modern witchcraft, it's something that can be very much as uniquely personal as your practice is, right? Like, so what one person's practice when it comes to sigils or anything else is going to look a lot different from another person, even if those people both identify as chaos magicians. But typically it involves some element of taking your intention, right? Making a clear positive statement that is in the present tense. So we're not doing the like, I will do XYZ. Like, no, it is very affirmative. It is very action focused, and it is very like clear and positive. So for example, I am confident rather than I will not be anxious, right? You can kind of feel the energy difference in those statements. And so what we are looking for is very affirmative, very strong. Then we take that statement and we simplify it. So a lot of people do the method where you take out repeating letters and repeating vowels, just because if you have too many, if you're doing the method of sigils where you're creating a symbol out of the actual letters in your intention, it can get a little bit cluttered if there's too many letters, if there's too much going on. So for some people, they'll just take out the repeating letters. Some people really swear by taking out the repeating letters and the vowels, whereas other people are they'll just like wing it and they'll just make symbols based on whatever. And like, again, this might upset some people, but I don't believe there's any right way. The only right way is the way that works for you. Now, what you do when you have simplified and you're left over with your letters is you take those and you create a symbol. So what I like to do is I like to start with like a big circle and try and make it in that sort of like mandala style. Just for me personally, I just love how that looks. Sometimes I'll let the letters and the shapes emerge outside of that circle, but I always like to start with a circle myself. And what you're going to do is combine those letters in an abstract way. Like it doesn't have to, they don't have to be the same size. They don't have to be in a row. You can really get to play around with it and be creative with it, which is why I just love it so much. You guys know I'm like obsessed with art and creativity magic. Again, I think it's really important to say there is no right way. The only right way is the way that works for you. And then you can go back and like refine the design to make it more aesthetically pleasing, or to kind of like clean things up. Or if you're like, oh, this doesn't like vibe with me, like it's got to be something that you feel connected to, that you vibe with. Now, some people use digital tools for this. You can use paper and pencil, or you can even use physical objects. You can carve into things. You can, paint. You can arrange, pebbles or something like that. Like you can really do so many different things with this. Again, like the only limit is really your imagination. But no matter what, like the process of doing this needs to feel personal and meaningful for you, because that's how you're going to connect to it. And that's how it's going to really imprint itself into your subconscious mind for you personally. So I personally like doing sigils using things like moon water. So I use watercolor pencils and moon water, and I try to create sigils that turn out looking very beautiful. I've done things like using sigils with like moisturizer, right? Like doing the symbols on my skin. There are so many different ways that you can use sigils. So just play around with it. Again, your spiritual practice gets to be your playground, right? So try and play around with it and see what feels good for you and what doesn't. When it comes to creativity, for us as human beings, like there really are no rules, you guys. It's like the most amazing thing. Like we think, oh, it's got to look like this, or we've got to do it this way. I am telling you, there's no rules. Like do what you feel called to do, play, experiment, and see how it goes. Now, when it comes to charging your sigil, so once you have your symbol, are you done? No, you have to charge your sigil. You have to infuse it with your energy, with your intent. And there's a few different ways that we can do this. Now, typically for chaos magicians, the way that we do this is through gnosis. So getting into some sort of an altered state of consciousness so that we're really tapping in and hacking into our subconscious mind. So for some people, this might look like meditation. So sitting with their sigil, sitting with their image, and really trying to form that bond, form that connection, visualizing your intent. What does it feel like? Like, what would that look like? How would that be, how would that intention being fulfilled feel like and look like in your mundane, ordinary life? Not the moment that it happens, but like when that's a part of your reality. Say, for example, being confident, like what would that look like and feel like? How would that change how you move? How would that change the way that your life looks and the way you show up for it? Physical activation is another thing. So a lot of people are like very die hard about burning your sigils. I'm not really in that camp, because again, I've used it for, I use it for like art purposes. I've used it to, put moisturizer on my skin, like maybe doing my makeup, like different sort of things like that, because I really just want it to be like a part of me. So it really depends what camp you're in, but some people really love the physical activation in terms of like burying it or burning it or like dissolving it to actually release it, so that again you're getting that that sense of disconnecting from it, right? Another way is to really lean into like a release of energy, right? So we're talking about like an emotional peak of some sort. So this can be through physical exercise, it could be through orgasms, and it could be through ecstatic dance, like different things like that really help to, again, induce that like altered state of consciousness, so that we really are getting into that subconscious mind when we are charging our sigils. And then there's ritual elements, right? So some people will use candles or incense or get like a real vibe set up, and then they'll try and connect to their sigils. They might use music, might use like different kind of art or activities like that. Again, there is no right way, so just play around with these and see how they work for you. If you are a person who works with sigils, drop it in the comments below what your preferred method is. I'm sure that everybody would love to see that. Now, the next thing is to forget about your sigil. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is like the most difficult part when it comes to manifesting, is like really releasing the like surrendering and letting go of the outcome. This is like so difficult in practice. But what you want to do is to stop dwelling on it. So you want this thing. Well, if you're dwelling on wanting it, then you're really just like pounding into your subconscious mind that you don't have it. So what you want to do is like do your sigil and then just like let it go. So preferably you're going to forget all about it until it manifests in the future, and you'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing. I remember when I like was wanting this. This is why some people are die hard about destroying the sigil or hiding the sigil. So really just play around with what works for you when it comes to that. Now, why do sigils matter? You guys, for me as a chaos magician, and for me as somebody that really thinks that all of this stuff can be very simple, very accessible, what it can do is really have a lot of psychospiritual benefits by, again, getting your subconscious and your conscious mind into congruence congruency. And so this can really empower you to make self-directed, like radical personal responsibility changes by aligning your conscious goals with your subconscious mind. Obviously, sigils matter because if they work, then you've manifested amazing, beautiful, wonderful things into your life. And so that fucking matters. But in a wider kind of idea of why they matter, I think the fact that they really do highlight and illustrate that magic can be simple. Magic can be easy. You don't need to have a ton of tools. It really kind of levels the playing field of magic by not really relying on like complex rituals or like dogma or like, you know, certain very highly regimented beliefs systems. It's something that really kind of levels the playing field and shows that magic can really be easy and accessible to all. And again, as your psychospiritual bestie, I really love the fact that they highlight the power of our subconscious mind, that they highlight the power of that psychological model. This idea that we can use these things to transform ourselves, like no external forces, nobody coming to save us, just us getting crystal clear on what we want and doing the actual work in order to make it happen. And I also think they matter because of how creative they are. I think human beings are naturally creative. I don't think we have to identify as artists in order to be creative. So I love that the sigil conversation really does kind of simplify that idea as well and incorporates it as like, you're a human being, you have the right to create, you have the right to make symbols of your desires, and it doesn't matter what they look like, it doesn't matter, like nobody else is grading this shit, it's just you and what you've created and your relationship to yourself. So in the upcoming season of my seasonal membership program, the Feral Self-Care Collective, this is like 12 weeks of weekly guided practices hosted by myself and 6 guest speakers. This season that's starting in July is going to be so amazing, you guys. But in this season, I'm going to be hosting a sigil making session. We're going to be doing hemispheric painting, which is essentially a different way and a therapeutic art practice that is also trying to do that method of bridging the subconscious and conscious mind. So we're going to be doing a painting session that we are going to be incorporating sigils in. So make sure you don't miss this season of the collective if you want to have a guided painting sigil making practice to kind of go along with. So even if you can't make the live sessions, all replays are available for you. Like, it is just 12 weeks of done for you magic, you guys, and I cannot, not to toot my own horn, but like toot, it's very amazing. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to sign up. There's a link in the description below. We also have sessions on things like the Akashic Records, introduction to psychic divination. We've got a session on junk journaling, elemental fitness, using the magician archetype. I'll be hosting a rage ritual. Like, you guys, there's just so much because there's 12 weeks of stuff. Like, usually you can't even get one class for the price that this whole season is. And so I made it that way because I want it to be accessible to all, because again, magic can be easy. So check out the description below if you want to hop in on that, because this hemispheric painting sigil session is going to be so amazing. But anyway, now we are going to talk a little bit about hypersigils, and this could be its own video. So if you want something on that, feel free to let me know in the comments. Again, if you haven't liked this video or subscribed, you might want to do that now. It's so helpful for my little baby small channel. I so appreciate all the shares and everything. Guys, I just love you so much. And if there's anything you ever want to see, pop it below. But now we're going to talk about hypersigils. So hypersigils is a very similar concept, but expanded. And so this is a term that was coined by Grant Morrison. And a hypersigil is essentially like an extended artistic work. So for example, a comic, a novel. Aidan Wachter has a really amazing practice he actually did for one of my seasons of the Feral Self-Care Collective before, on doing the black book process that is in his book Weaving Fate, which is a journaling process. hypersigils can be songs. So essentially these are just, instead of being one simple symbol, it's an ongoing piece or body of work that is, again, working towards a specific intention or manifesting certain things into your life. And so this extended artistic work is something that is similarly infused with magical intent, and the purpose of it is to reshape your reality. Now, I'm sure that by now, all of us who are chaos magicians or into sigils and that sort of thing have heard the stories about how that can go, and the importance of being very, very careful of what you put into your hypersigils, because you just never know what might manifest. And this is something that you actually can see. Even people who don't identify as occultists or chaos magicians sometimes talk about, creatives talk about, where they're writing a song or they're writing about certain things, and they find that the things that they're saying, they're doing, they're creating will manifest in their reality. So it is very important to be intentional, just like with all magic, being very intentional about what it is that you're creating and what it is that you're manifesting and speaking and creating into existence in your world. Now, unlike simple static sigils, hypersigils use things like narrative, plot, different characters to embed the intent and the manifestations that people are desiring over time. So these require really deep absorption into what you're doing. So sometimes this might even border on obsession in order to manifest change. So it's really just embedding the things you want into your creations and having them be so much a part of your world, of your inner landscape, of your subconscious and conscious mind, that it's just something that can't help but manifest in reality. So the biggest example, of course, would be Grant Morrison's Invisibles comic series, which basically was designed to influence culture and the creator's life. You could also look at things like people's social media platforms as like a really modern version of hypersigils, where people can kind of unintentionally create these hypersigils by shaping their identity through these really highly curated narratives. So in this way, hypersigils really engage the subconscious through storytelling, through amplifying transformation for both the creator and the audience. Now, you don't always need to have an audience. Again, for example, Aidan Wachter's Black Book process from his book Weaving Fate is a really great example. I know for myself, after he came and did a guest session for the Feral Self-Care Collective, me and my husband both started Black Books, but we don't talk about what's in our Black Book. We would certainly not show anybody. It is something that is really just a very personal tool for us. But your mileage may vary. So for example, if you are somebody that creates things for public consumption and this is something you've incorporated into it, you may be building a world not only for yourself, but for other people. Now, it is important to be cautious when it comes to hypersigils, obviously, for really being careful, again, what you're creating and speaking into existence, but also the immersive nature of them. It's important to have balance, right? It's important to have breaks, time to step back, because it can lead to a little bit of obsession sometimes. So now I'm going to invite you to, after you're watching this, create a sigil, play around with this, and see how it feels for you. Like, pick a desire, pick something that you're wanting to manifest, and engage in this process of actually making a sigil, charging it, forgetting about it, and seeing how it works. These are such amazing, accessible psycho-spiritual tools that really can harness the subconscious mind to manifest your intent, to manifest your deepest desires. And these are something that humans have been doing for clearly such a long time, which I think really shows its enduring value for us, whether it be something we're using to connect with the supernatural or something that we're using to manifest personal positive change in our own lives. The creative evolution of sigils into hypersigils is just something that is even more interesting with even more depth. So if you have experience with hypersigils, let us know in the comments below. One of my favorite things about YouTube is like reading the comments and getting to see like what people are actually doing, because I can tell you about my practice, I can tell you about my life, but it's so interesting to get a variety of diverse perspectives, because after all, there is, again, no one size guys approach when it comes to magic, when it comes to chaos magic, when it comes to spirituality in general. Again, please like this video. Please feel free to share it with anybody that you think would benefit from it. And please subscribe to this channel if you are interested in psychospiritual wellness, chaos magic, and all things kind of grounded spirituality. And make sure to check out the description below if you want to see my shorts on making sigils, if you want to see some of the other videos that I've mentioned in this video, and if you want to check out the lineup and the sessions and all the cool shit that we are going to be doing in the July to September 2025 season of the Feral Self-Care Collective. Again, this program is so amazing. I mean, a lot of people state that they feel disconnected from their practice, and this program is really meant to kind of solve that problem by giving you 12 weeks of done-for-you practices that are fresh, novel, new, exciting, so you can learn new things to add to your toolkit so that you'll never be bored, you'll never be sitting wondering what you need to do. And during these seasons, all you have to do is show up for 60 to 90 minutes per week, and bam, you've got a consistent practice. It's pretty amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, bye!